Well, hello and welcome to today's Academy session on how to set ambitious corporate targets and accelerate progress on the global goals. This session is part one in a series of two Academy sessions that we're running between now and the end of September on SDG Ambition, the UN Global Compact's new impact initiative that aims to challenge and support participating companies in setting ambitious corporate targets and accelerating integration of the SDGs into core management. We've launched this initiative in partnership with Accenture and SAP, and we will be rolling this out in collaboration with our local networks around the world in the coming months. Part two of this series will take place during UN General Assembly Week in September, and we look forward to telling you more a little bit about that a little later in the session. My name is Nessa Whelan, and I'm delighted to be your host for today's session. We've several objectives for today's Academy session. The first is to raise awareness of SDG ambition among UN Global Compact participants and signatories, and to encourage you all to join us on a journey to raise ambition and deepen integration of the SDGs into business operations everywhere. The second is that we want to use this session to serve as a kind of a teaser for the types of discussion and learning that participants in the SDG Ambition program will engage in. And the third objective is to invite the participants on the call today to help shape and refine the current set of SDG ambition benchmarks that underpin the program and represent the line in the sand that we're calling on all companies to align their goal setting ambition and strategies with. So as you can see from the agenda outlined, we'll start with a brief introduction to SDG ambition, what it's designed to achieve, and the plans for rolling it out in the coming months. We'll then provide a high-level overview of some of the programmatic elements that the SDG Ambition Accelerator program will dive into and explore in greater depth in the early part of the program. And following that, we'll then have an interactive panel discussion where we will hear about the importance and value of raising ambition and learn from the experience of leading practitioners on the opportunities and challenges companies face in this regard. We look forward to then having a Q&A discussion with participants on the call. And we invite you to use the chat function throughout the presentation to submit any questions that you may have. We'll try to respond to them during the presentation, or definitely if we have time at the end, try and cover as many questions as we get. So to take us through all of this content today, I'm delighted to be joined on the session by a number of fellow presenters and contributors. Michael Hughes, well, the first two contributors I'd like to introduce are representatives of the two partnering organizations on SDG Ambition. Michael Hughes is a manager of sustainability and responsible business at Accenture, and Anne Rosenberg, Senior Vice President of UN Partnerships at SAP. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank both SAP and Accenture for their commitment to this partnership. Both organizations bring unique and important skills to the design and the delivery of this work and to core components of the SDG Ambition program, which you'll hear more about. And you will be hearing directly from both Anne and Michael at various points throughout the discussion today. In addition to Anne and Michael, we are thrilled to be joined by two distinguished panelists who will share their perspectives and experiences when it comes to setting ambitious sustainability goals. Esther An is Chief Executive Officer at City Development Limited, which is a leading global real estate company with a network spanning 106 locations in 29 countries and regions. Farzana Chowdhury is Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer at Green Delta Insurance Company Limited, which is one of the leading private non-life insurance companies in Bangladesh. We are delighted to have both Farzana and Esther join us for the session today, not least because both have been recognized by the UN Global Compact as SDG pioneers in 2016 and 2018 respectively, receiving this recognition for their commitment and achievement in driving sustainability within their organization. So we very much look forward to hearing from them and learning from their experience a little later in the discussion. So why have we launched SDG Ambition? Well, even before the onset of the current pandemic, the need for greater ambition to deliver on the SDGs was clear. The world has not been delivering progress towards the goals at the pace or scale that is needed. And now we are seeing already COVID-19's impacts intertwine with long-standing economic and social inequalities. For example, many of you will already be familiar with the stat, but even pre-COVID, the World Economic Forum predicted that at current rates of progress, it'll take 257 years to close the economic gender gap. Now, initial evidence is showing that the socio-economic implications of COVID are impacting women disproportionately, setting that timeline back even further. Global poverty is set to rise above 1 billion people once again as a result of the pandemic, which is reducing the income of the world's poorest by $500 million a day, according to new research. So without action, this crisis could set back progress on reducing global poverty by 20 or even 30 years. Right now, we are on the cusp of losing decades worth of progress in pursuit of sustainable development, and the achievement of the SDGs has become even more of an ambitious endeavor. The good news is that we are seeing a lot of engagement by business across the SDGs. 81% of UN Global Compact companies report taking action to support the global goals. But the SDGs have not yet motivated the step change in ambition which is needed to achieve them. There is a critical performance gap between the action business is taking right now and the global and societal needs defined by the Sustainable Development Goals. For example, only 39% of companies say they have targets that they believe are sufficiently ambitious to deliver Agenda 2030, that are science-based and/or align with societal needs. This is even further exemplified by the fact that as of today, on an issue as urgent as climate, less than 1,000 companies are taking science-based climate action, and only 420 companies in the world have approved science-based targets. So at the same time, companies report that the biggest challenge they face in advancing sustainability is embedding it deeply within their strategies and operations and value chains. In our last progress report, less than half of all our participating companies reported that they are embedding the SDGs into their core businesses, and only 37% are designing business models to support them. Therefore, in January this year, the UN Global Compact, together with Accenture and SAP, launched SDG Ambition with the aim of supporting companies in delivering more ambitious and being more ambitious and transformational in how they run their businesses to deliver on the 2030 agenda. Companies that sign up to SDG Ambition will engage in a series of programmatic modules offered through our local networks and with the support of our partners Accenture and SAP. The program will be delivered through a series of workshops that will span for approximately 6 months. And we are happy to note that 25 of our local networks have already committed to running the SDG Ambition in their countries in the coming year. For companies in countries where there may not be a local network, or where the local network is not running SDG Ambition, we will offer a virtual version of the program to participating companies through the Global Compact Academy. This will run in parallel with the in-country program. It'll be delivered in English and it'll be a somewhat condensed version of what's offered in country. But details on how to join will be shared at the end of the session today, and we hope that over the next couple of years, SDG Ambition will engage at least 1,000 companies in over 30 countries across all continents. So the program itself will take companies through a step-by-step process to accelerate their contribution to the 2030 Agenda. As part of this first step, companies will gain an understanding of the importance of foundational actions grounded in the UN Global Compact's 10 principles and how to identify and prioritize action and impacts to ensure a holistic and systemic approach to the global goals. Then following on from that, SDG Ambition will then guide companies on how to align new or revise existing goals to the ambition level that is required to achieve the SDGs as represented by the new SDG Ambition benchmarks, which you'll hear more about shortly. Then finally, the program will guide companies to design a process or to design processes to ensure that the related targets and actions needed to achieve their goals, that they are fully integrated into the heart of business management systems. And as part of the program, participants will explore some of the kind of potential, potential of enabling technologies to help manage and track their progress towards the goals. We will then offer companies the opportunity to publicly share their ambitions and their ambitious goals aligned with the benchmarks with stakeholders through our website, where they'll be able to communicate their progress over time. So this quote from the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, sums up exactly what we're aiming to achieve with this program. We need to be more ambitious in our strategies to achieve the goals. We need to go deeper in our implementation and integration of the goals across our organizations, and we need to speed up our efforts in this regard. Through SDG Ambition, we aim to provide the relevant support and guidance companies need to effectively respond to this call. So hopefully by now you have a fairly good understanding on the context and objectives behind SDG Ambition. We'd now like to provide a brief overview of some of the core elements of the program that participants will be guided through in those first couple of modules. I'm going to start by highlighting the importance of ensuring a holistic and systemic approach to goal setting in a way that maximizes an organization's impact across the SDGs. And then I will hand over to Michael, who will then introduce the SDG Ambition benchmarks and provide an overview of what it means for companies to align the level of ambition that they with the level of ambition that they represent. So, core to the UN Global Compact is the understanding that raising ambition is both about responsibilities and opportunities. When we examine ambitious transformations for the SDGs, we cannot overlook the foundation to enabling long-term sustainable business conduct. Key to making a meaningful contribution to the SDGs and supporting the achievement of the SDGs is behaving and operating in a manner that is aligned with the 10 principles of the UN Global Compact. These universal principles represent the fundamental values that businesses should embed in their strategies and operations. And without these foundational elements anchoring a company's approach to the SDGs, companies risk undermining progress towards the goals. To understand this better, you only need to look at the issue of human rights. For example, the 2030 Agenda is essentially a human rights-based agenda. More than 90% of the 169 targets are actually linked to international human rights treaties and labor standards. This, of course, means that it's absolutely impossible for business or anyone else to deliver on the SDGs without taking action on human rights. Or simply put, respecting and supporting human rights is the most certain way to achieve the SDGs. A company that aligns its business practices with the 10 principles and considers its impacts across human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption will ensure that it does not undermine its own SDG efforts and will be well positioned to positively contribute to the 2030 agenda. If all companies everywhere fully integrate the 10 principles, we will be well on our way to achieving the global goals by 2030. But over the last 20 years, the Global Compact has developed a wealth of resources to support companies in meeting their commitment to the 10 principles. As part of the SDG Ambition Programme, we'll reinforce the understanding of these essential actions across the principal areas and help participants navigate the resources and tools that they may need to improve their performance aligned with the principles. Another important aspect to note is the interlinkages and interconnected or integrated nature of the Sustainable Development Goals. As business makes meaningful action or takes meaningful action on the goals, it's important to understand that each of the global goals is inherently and deeply interconnected, and that taking action in one goal can support and hinder the achievement of others. As illustrated by the visual graphic on the slide, identifying and addressing these interconnections will help companies to build holistic and systemic approaches that amplifies their positive impact and mitigates the negative. By emphasizing the importance of a principle-based approach within the SDG Ambition Programme, we will help companies reveal opportunities to maximize impact and create positive knock-on effects towards other goals while working to minimize potential harm. So finally, a good understanding of how action on the 10 principles connects to the global goals. Having that understanding, companies then need to engage or companies engaged in the program will then be guided through a process of principled prioritization. And this is essentially a process to help companies identify the priority SDGs for them to focus on in a way that is aligned with a principle-based approach. And there are two key considerations that every company should consider as it begins to prioritize its SDG activities. The first is to minimize negative impact. The focus here is on identifying the most severe negative impacts on people and on the environment that are linked to your company's operation and value chain. And as you prioritize SDGs, this assessment ensures that you're working to minimize your negative impacts on related SDGs and may lead you to find unexpected opportunities for innovation and positive impacts. An important point to note here is that our recent annual report, we found that while 62% of companies conduct environmental impact assessments, only 18% of companies surveyed have conducted human rights impact assessments. When you think of how important human rights are to the achievement of the SDGs, that's a staggeringly low number. And we hope that through greater awareness raising and guidance as part of SDG Ambition, that we'll be able to contribute to a significant rise in that figure moving forward. So the second lens to consider is how you can maximize positive impact. And this is the opportunity for companies to identify the goals that they can best contribute through their operations, services, or investments aligned with core business practices. And this is done by mapping the organization's skills and capabilities with an aim to highlight positive impacts on both now and in the future. In guiding companies through an exercise to identify strategic opportunities to support the goals, will not only contribute to the achievement of the goals, but to reinforcing the resilience and long-term success of your organization into the future. So principal prioritization of the SDGs is a tool that will empower your company in three important ways. It'll align company strategy, efforts, and allocation of resources with goals that reflect their significant impacts. It'll identify new business opportunities, strategies, products, and activities necessary to achieve the scale and transformation needed. And it'll help companies avoid cherry picking and SDG washing. Cherry picking being when companies select those goals and targets based on what they think is easiest to address rather than for what accounts as their highest impacts. And SDG washing, obviously, when companies are reporting on the positive contributions to the goals and ignoring important negative impacts. So as part of the program, we'll be providing companies with guidance on the specific tools and resources that they can use to assess their impacts across the SDGs so that they can have a baseline understanding of where they should be prioritizing their activities. This will ensure more holistic thinking about the opportunities to drive ambitious transformation. And once you've defined your priorities, then you need to set your ambition level to align with the aspiration of the global goals. And to provide an overview of how the SDG ambition will support companies in doing that, I would like to hand over to Michael Hughes to take us through the next set of slides. Michael, over to you.
Thank you, Nessa, for that great introduction, and thank you to the Global Compact for spearheading this transformative agenda. Very excited to be with you all this evening. So as we take a step back and kind of think about goal setting for the decade of action, I think many of us have experienced an evolution in terms of goal setting over the last several years, whereas we've kind of moved from a more incremental approach to moving towards absolute impact-oriented and really interconnectedness when it comes to goal setting. So this evolution has taken many forms. You know, we've moved from these very incremental goals based on what is possible today to these more absolute goals grounded in science and really looking to understand what is required to achieve the SDGs by each individual company. So things like moving on to a 1.5 degree pathway in line with a science-based target. We also moved from really output oriented, so looking at just waste volumes and things like that, to really impact oriented to drive more positive outcomes for both society and the environment, looking to really eliminate waste across the entire business as an example. And we've also seen a move from just philanthropic activities as it relates to sustainable action and responsible business to expanding that to your core business and your products and your services and really how you engage with your global value chains to really make sure that you are delivering products and services that are sustainable to the market. And finally, we've moved from independent KPIs where sustainability is kind of standalone and independent of your core strategy to an interconnected system of KPIs where sustainability is right alongside your financial and business performance metrics. So this evolution has really taken us to a new spot as we look to advance the overall 2030 agenda. And in light of that, we really tried to establish the SDG business benchmarks in that light. So if we move to the next slide, I'll kind of take you through, as Nessa really highlighted, you know, we're clearly not on track for the SDGs, and we really wanted to understand how can we help business really focus in on the areas of their greatest amount of impact. One of the findings from our 2019 CEO study with the Global Compact was business really struggled to understand and kind of navigate the 17 goals, 169 sub-targets. You know, where can we really have the most meaningful impact? So we spent several months looking at kind of how we can focus in on those activities. So we did a sub-target analysis, looking very bottoms up through those 169 indicators, analyzing where business was establishing goals, what the business role was at each of those levels, really trying to understand at a very granular level where business was best positioned. We also looked very much thematically down. A lot has changed in the 5 years since the SDGs were revealed. And so we really tried to make sure we were capturing anything that has kind of risen up and that business has really taken on the mantle of driving the agenda forward, such as LGBTQ issues. As you can imagine, that generated a lot of potential options for business contribution. So we tried to narrow that in on 2 primary drivers. One was where we felt business had the greatest amount of control and impact. So obviously there's different layers of business contribution to different target areas. So really wanted to hone in on where we felt business had a lot of, it either caused a lot of the issues or was a big part of the solution. So as an example, in the fishing industry, 13 companies can control up to 40% of the world's fish stocks. And if we're able to get those 13 companies to commit to sustainable fishing, that really drives the whole agenda forward. We see similar instances across climate and gender and other issues. The other piece was really looking for where we felt there was a consensus standard. So I do want to take a moment to recognize not only the organization you see here at the bottom, but dozens of others who contributed enormous amounts of thought leadership over the last decade, really to think through how we tackle these various issues. And they've really informed how we establish these benchmarks to make sure that we had things that were sufficiently measured, mature, and really had the scientific backing to establish an absolute target. So we think about things like the Science-Based Target Initiative, establishing on a 1.5 degree pathway. So this is kind of the analysis we took for the last several months. And as we revealed at the Leaders Summit on June 15th, we have released a set of kind of 10 SDG mission benchmarks. So these cover across the kind of ESG spectrum, moving everything from living wages and gender balance to a set of environmental targets, including things around circular economy, as well as climate change, as well as looking at how we tackle anti-corruption through issues like bribery. So again, this is kind of our initial set on where we feel like business cross-industry can really have a lot of impact. And as Nessa rightly highlighted earlier, a philosophical adoption of this program was that, in progress on one SDG has a number of ripple effects on other SDGs. So you'll see here, we targeted one primary SDG, but there are a number of others that can be impacted by adoption of this target. So we spent a lot of time kind of narrowing it on this list of 10, and it is not the end-all be-all list by any means. As you'll see in the publication that we released in June, this is the initial set of 10, and we have some other areas we're interested in exploring around a number of different social, environmental, and governance topics, as well as looking to define a set of industry-specific targets as well. So those will be coming in the coming months as well. But I do want to highlight that these are released for consultation. So I'd really like to encourage this group to go onto the SDG Ambition website and really provide your feedback. There is a feedback form available to all UN Global Compact members. We really are seeking to make sure that we have a representative industry and geographic input on these to make sure that these are really the best they can be, as well as to collect input for future development on additional benchmarks moving forward. So if we move to the next slide, as we think about really adopting these benchmarks, what does that mean? What are the steps you need to take? And this will be kind of highlighted as part of the accelerated program Nessa mentioned. But at a very high level, you want to take kind of stock of where you're at today. You want to do an assessment and understand what are your current and potential, both positive and negative, potential SDG impacts on your business activities. So this would be understanding, making sure that you're kind of aligned to those baseline expectations, as Nessa highlighted around the 10 principles, and making sure you're really doing the kind of bare minimum standard to be a good business player. And then looking at kind of what is your SDG impact and the business value around that. So kind of get an understanding of where you are today. From there, you need to move into the setup phase and kind of understand, all right, we can use these SDG ambition benchmarks to establish kind of where our company targets should be and what the level of ambition that the business community needs to adopt in order to deliver on the 2030 agenda. So going through this will require you to understand your scope, what are your relevant benchmarks and kind of KPIs aligned to your various reporting standards, and really kind of moving through understanding your own accountability and who actually owns ownership of the delivery of these, and making sure that you have the proper incentives in place to really deliver on those. And the final piece is making sure that these are time bound. You can't have an endless goal. You want to make sure that you have not only kind of the ultimate time, but as well as some interim milestones to make sure you're hitting your benchmark along the way. And the third and final piece, which is very critical, is no one organization can do this by themselves. We've partnered with SAP and the Global Compact to just get this program started, but it is open to any and all organizations. We really do encourage kind of broad sharing and kind of collaboration across this. So when you set a goal, we encourage you to be public about it, commit to it, and engage your peers, your competitors, your industry groups to really understand where they're at and if there's opportunities for collaboration, and really understanding the impact on your reporting. Because ultimately we may not have all the answers today, and some of these areas will require innovation for us to get there. So ultimately that'll kind of drive, once you've established these goals, how you can go into the integration piece, which will be part 2 of this series later on this year. And so with that, Nessa, I'll pass it back to you to welcome our esteemed panelists.
Thank you very much for that, Michael. Thanks for that overview. And I'm sure we're getting lots of questions through the chat function, which we'll try to get to as many as we can a little later. We did receive one question that I'll just respond to quickly, and it was asking how this relates to the SDG Action Manager, which is a question we get quite a lot. Many of you may be familiar with the Action Manager that the Global Compact launched and developed together with B-Lab. And it is like an online self-assessment tool that also can help companies benchmark their performance and point to areas for improvement. So in that sense, we see it as a potential resource and a tool that companies can use in the early phase of the SDG Ambition program to kind of assess where they are in terms of contributing to the goals, where they may have room for improvement, and I can point to areas where they want to may scale action. So a good tool in the early stages of the SDG Ambition program for companies who may find it useful. So in the interest of time, we'd now like to move to the interactive panel discussion and to hear directly from some of the leading practitioners on their experience in setting ambitious goals aligned with the SDGs and the challenges and opportunities that this has presented their companies. Esther, Farzana, thank you both for joining us for today's discussion. Esther, I'm going to start maybe with you today. Esther has been instrumental in establishing the sustainability portfolio for CDL, which is ranked as one of the top real estate company or the top real estate company on the 2020 Global 100 Most Sustainable Corporations of the World. So Esther, recognizing the importance of prioritization when selecting areas on which to set goals, can you share an example of how City Development Limited assesses its impacts across the SDGs and how these types of assessments determine or shape its goal setting practices?
Yeah, certainly. Greetings from Singapore, and thank you for having me. Our SDG journey actually started as far back as 2005 when we first joined the UN Global Compact, and we adopted the 10 principles. And when it came to 2016, when the UN SDG was launched, we actually look at it, study it carefully, and we have identified 9 SDGs that are aligned with our existing ESG strategy and climate strategy. And as a developer, of course, we know that we have high environmental impact of the, and also we work together with actually very extensive value chain. So that's how we started, and also look into what are the key SDGs that we could actually align with our core business and also our core competence that we could really make a difference and create positive impact. So in 2017, we actually identified another, one more, which is actually 10 SDG, and embrace them into our future value sustainability blueprint. We set goals and targets, for CDLs to achieve by 2030, and basically align them with the global goal, climate action, as well as the various SDG. As we, progress, 2018, we actually embraced 13 goals, and today we embraced 2019 now, we embrace 14 goals. As you can see that the priority are really aligned with our construction and building industry, and of course, innovation, green infrastructure, low carbon operations, all these are very important for us as priority. And as we set the goals, we also have to look at it, like Michael said, no one country or one entity can save the world alone. And so we need to look at partnership, and we look at our value chain. May I have the second slide, please? So we look at how our supply chain can supplier and can actually help to contribute to achieving our global goals. And we adopted a multi-stakeholder approach in our ESG strategy, and similarly adopted for our SDG alignment. If you look at the chart on the right, which actually adopted a life cycle approach from the day we acquire land and how we designed, orientate our building, how we designed it and how we plan it. And of course, we adopt the low carbon approach, and also put green building as our top priority. How do we build and design maximizing the natural ventilation, air, and try to minimize the use of air conditions and all that. That started from drawing board, from design and planning. We share our vision with our architect, engineer, and of course the next stage is the construction, which actually take about 2 to 3 years. And very importantly, construction is not definitely have high environmental and social impact, and whether to the community around it or to the workers that work on site. So we actually implement our EHS policy as far back as 2000. So we embrace our existing EHS, environment, health and safety policies in the construction practices and policy. And definitely we look at also the supply chain is very important, especially during COVID, as we all know that there has a great disruption to, the supply of building materials and transportations and all that. So last year, we actually started to look at the supply chain risk, assessing it by, looking at it with the social lens, environmental lens, looking at the sourcing of the material, and also looking at the type of raw materials we look at their carbon, impact. We look at how we can engage our suppliers and our stakeholders to align with our targets of, we set for our SBTI, carbon intensity reduction targets. And of course, we also have to, engage the residents, that occupied our residential development, as well as the building users. As a landlord, we feel that we have the direct contact with our office tenants and shoppers, and so we feel that we can really engage them, because users, how they use the building have a strong impact on the environmental performance of our buildings. So we actually engage them, even our property agents, how and why home buyers should choose a green building, instead of the others. Yeah, so I think this is the simple, chart of how we set out goals, and bear in mind with the multi-stakeholders along our value chain.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for that overview, Esther. Really interesting to see how it's the whole value chain is being taken into consideration and into account. Speaking on the value of ambitious goals, as the first real estate company in Singapore to commit to setting an SBT aligned with 1.5 degrees. Can you highlight a couple of examples of business value that City Development Limited has derived as a result of establishing such ambitious goals?
Yes, well, building and construction sector account for 39% of greenhouse gas emission globally. So we realized that the energy efficiency is very important, So we actually that is our top priority for, to improve energy efficiency, to look at technology, how we can reduce consumption and also raise the efficiency is very important. But we need to set goals and to guide us as to where are we now and where are we headed, in 10 years. So that's why in 2018, we started, to set our carbon emission intensity targets to to consult SBTI, that is based on the recommendation of Paris Agreement. And no point to plug from air a number, but you look at the reduction target that is based on science, and it is a very, very challenging targets, but it does help us to look at where we are and how do we set ambitious targets to drive us to look at how we can scout for technologies and innovation and solutions and improve our best practices to work towards not just 2 degrees. Now we are looking at 1.5, and we are very glad to have committed, to pledge our support for 1.5 business ambitions last year at the UN Global Compact Climate Action Week. And apart from setting ambitious target, you also have to look at how do you track it, and you can't track it only when the 2029, then you look at it. You have to track it regularly, which I'm going to share it a little bit later. And as you can see on the chart in the left, you have to embrace it into your business strategy. And you can't work on it in silos that I just set this, ambitious carbon emission target, while you don't look at it and how does it integrate and impact on the overall business strategy. As you can see that at the center of our the value creation business model is what we are talking about, the conserving as we construct, which is a corporate ethos that we started in 1995. That was 25 years ago. So, so we look at the integrated approach, and we look at how do we design our product, how do we, look at our branding, and how do we engage our people and the community, and of course, the natural capital is very important. And 1.5 degree ambitious target is directly contributed to enhance our natural capitals, and all these 5 capitals have impact on our financial performance. And we don't look at today's technology or today's performance, we look at future-proofing our business. So setting targets are very important to guide us, as like we actually also adopted the, the SDG Compass to help us to set target and track it. SDG Compass is jointly developed by UNGC and GRI and World Business Council for Sustainable Development. And that actually really help us, give us the direction on how we can set targets and goals that is very relevant to our business, and also how we can create an impact.
Great. Thank you very much, Esther. I really appreciate the plug for the Compass there as well as a good tool. Thank you for that. I'm going to bring Farzana into the discussion now. Farzana, so Nivedita is the first insurance product in Southeast Asia that has been exclusively developed for women and women's empowerment. Can you speak about this and your motivation for launching the product and how it's helping you meet your ambitious gender equality goals at the same time as creating value and building business resilience? While we're waiting for Farzana, maybe I can ask a question that we received from panelists to Esther. Esther, how do you approach and address the role of government, which can play both a positive and a negative role in supporting the implementation of the SDGs?
Well, definitely along the value chain, I think regulator can definitely play a very important role. And we do believe in the public and private partnership. And over the years, we have done a lot of partnership with, the government and as well as the, global agencies as well. I think just 2 days ago, the Singapore government has just, have set up a new parliament, and there is a new department, a ministry called the Ministry for Sustainability and Environment. So as you can see that the government is really playing a key role in driving sustainability, and this is really something I'm jumping for joy after 20 years in being a sustainability practitioner. And this also shows that the government really see that sustainability is a mainstream subject and making it a ministry's portfolio. Yeah, so I believe in collaboration and partnership, which can actually multiply and amplify voices, ideas, and also positive impact.
Right. Thank you for that, Esther. I appreciate it. Farzana, can we hear you now?
It's all technology glitch all the time. Anyway, I guess motivation, came from. It's like being a woman, because a woman always understands a woman better. Because when I became the CEO, I felt that, the penetration of the insurance is very low in this country. That's less than 1%, and 50% of the population is women, and that Bangladesh has a young population, and out of like 61% population is under the age of 23, and where 50% of that population is actually women. And we have achieved our MDG goals, and Bangladesh is going through an economic transition phase, and there women needs a solution to their issues, because women, to kind of becoming more economically and socially independent. So that is how actually motivated me as a CEO, the first female CEO in this financial industry. I felt that it's my responsibility to come up with a product for women, and that's how motivated and me to come up with this. And the thing is, it has to come from the top. That's how we kind of created this product, not by selling what we have, like you just mentioned, the SDG washing. I mean, we try to have all those FGDs and found out that what are the issues that women faces, because to encourage women to take insurance, we have to give them value-added services. So those issues that we have addressed in our policies, that's how it's unique in the Southeast Asia, that we, in addition to the health and accidental coverage. We do have a certain amount of the property damage, and then trauma allowance for acid victims, rape victims, and those who are exposed to road bullies, and also access to the law enforcement agencies and other agencies. So this is how the Nivedita started, and it's kind of an evolution. And we found out that women are coming forward, but they're not addressing their issues. But then we thought that it's digital platform that can really help bringing in all those value-added services that they required for their for them to become independent. So that is how they need access to finance, access to information, access to training, access to livelihood. That's how we brought in all those partners like banks, all those lifestyle companies and law enforcement agencies and panel of lawyers, so that they can have all those issues, so that they can come out of their comfort zone. So this is how the journey started, and I think it's an evolution. And then it's a kind of a platform, powerful platform for women of all walks of life to make them independent. And of course, they need to have financial and technology literacy. That is very important. That's why we have partnered with all those training institutes as well to give them trainings on financial matters. So this is how that we felt that we were the first corporate to sign the WP statement, and that is actually more embedded in our SDG goals and the corporate objectives. And becoming an SDG pioneer actually opened up our eyes that, where we have also working in those, achieving those SDG goals. That's actually the second side I would like to talk about. I just want to mention that through Nivedita, we have improved or enhanced the number of active decision-making women employees in our companies, and those women are selling those those policies, and we found out that women are more loyal, and then it's very tough to sell the product first, but when they take it and experience it, they're the most loyal. And there are many instances where we have changed the livelihood of a woman, like a factory worker, met an accident, and with the claim amount, they started a tea stall, and then, with some miscreants attacked her, and she pushed the panic button in the apps, and then help came to rescue him, and then she went to, we helped her to get bank loans, and now she's become an entrepreneur. So livelihood. And 12% of our premium is actually earned through these women employees. So that's actually one of the achievement that we have got. So access to, so we help them access in becoming socially and independent and financially independent and taking independent decisions. The next slide, please. If we can see that how we have encouraged other activities or other innovations through these women women product success. Like we said that we have the SDG report we have launched last year, and then this has actually really helped us cascade down to our employees and the management to really understand how SDG not only can also add value to the livelihood of the people and bringing them into financial inclusion. More women can be coming into the financial inclusion and improve their productivity, but also bring in business, generate business for our company. So that's how that we thought that you need to have a disruptive model to go out of your comfort zone and to have a multi-stakeholder approach. That is how that we can expand in the whole country by having alternate distribution channel. That's how we started collaborating with different partners. Like for women, we partnered with chamber bodies, we partnered with the ICT ministry, the RMG sector, banks, security service providers and value-added service providers, lifestyle and the training institute and the counseling agencies. There are many counseling agencies that we have actually now more than 200,000 female customers that with us, and then and out of that more than 500 we have already given trainings on different levels in terms of mental health. That is really we're focusing, and that is what we are focusing through our subsidiaries. Our subsidiaries, the healthcare subsidiaries, really helping us, and the training institutes helping in those trainings.
That's amazing.
Just chain and in the micro health that we have partnered with different organizations like in the like SIT companies, international development agencies, government units, and that we're working with different governments like finance ministry. We are working in the Har area to help the farmers, by having this by providing weather-based indexed insurance, and in that provides transparency, and then they don't need to really wait for our people or any drone to tell them what is going to be their proportional claim amount. And in the micro health, we are working with the health ministry, and that is where we have actually touched upon more than 650,000 people in different areas. This is the second phase, and we are going into the third phase at the moment. And the next is the NGOs and the microfinance institutions. These are institutions that we need to really work with them and the banks to actually reach out to those marginal segments and provide the insurance that really adds value to their productivity and also in their finances.
Wow.
So,
that's great, Farzana. It's amazing the extent of the collaborations, and to hear also how it connects to core business. I think we could spend another hour diving into the detail of that. One question that we are getting for both panelists, and maybe Farzana you can start, but is connected to the challenges. Companies are participants on the call are interested to hear, what are the challenges that you have faced as you've tried to implement your ambitions, and how have they been overcome?
Actually, there are a lot of challenges that we have faced. The first challenge that we face is the internal. The internal customer are your employees. Because they need to really understand what SDG is all about. So SDG is like, for some people is just like a buzzword. For some corporates it's a buzzword. So it's I think it's we have walked the talk. That's how we, by implementing the WP statement in our policy levels, by implementing SDGs in our corporate objectives and attaching these to their performance, performance evaluation, and also having the SDG report according to the UN GRI guideline. It has really made a more transparent environment. So now all the teams are energized. Like every year, we're actually kind of improving ourselves. Now we have a more kind of focused team, like impact business department. We have digital business department, which takes care of the different segments a very, very focused manner. And the other is like, the SDG awareness among the corporates, it's really, really difficult to understand sometimes. So when we partner with organizations, there are instances where we felt that, we don't have the same mindset. So you need to have a mindset that we have to create a socially, commercially viable project. Believing in these marginal people, that they will bring in revenues, because they are the people, because Bangladesh is a country where there's more opportunities are there. So we need to have a platform where transforming risks into opportunities. So this is how
thank you, Farzana. I appreciate that, highlighting awareness raising among fellow private sector colleagues and partners is a big challenge. I want to give Esther the floor for 1 minute to quickly highlight her big challenge before I then hand over to Anne to take us through the next steps. So Esther, what would be your
Yeah.
biggest challenge that you faced?
Okay, quite quickly, I think changing people's mindset is very, very, very challenging. Everybody have a fixated mind about certain thing. And when we first started a sustainability journey, a lot of people don't see the value. And you have to highlight that we have to take the long-term view, especially as a listed company, we are open to scrutiny. And as you can see that, especially over the last 6 months, when the whole world is under the challenge of not just the health pandemic, but actually the financial challenges, and you can see that ESG investing is really growing, in a tremendous manner. Never in my whole life that, my 25 years in this journey, I never seen ESG investing, growing so fast. And there's true data to show that climate indices, SDG, ESG indices have outperformed, their counterpart. And I think now with the investor as a key driving force, listed company like us, and businesses like us can see the real value, the so-called ROI, and we can also quantify the business value, and it can really embrace, you can really embrace ESG and SDG and to future fit your business. We are not looking at short term, just meeting the quarterly, profit, expectation of investor. We have to show investor that yes, trust us, we have a long-term plan. We are planning, all the way to 2030, 2050, and that is how you raise the confidence of investors. As a business, I must say that you have to maintain and sustain your business. And if you don't maintain profitable, you can't return value to your shareholder investors, and you can't even keep the job for your staff. So we have the obligations to really embrace SDG as a business case and show the long-term value and immediate and short-term value and how you can future-proof your business. Then you can really overcome the challenges, whether it is internal stakeholder or external stakeholders.
Right. Thank you for that, Esther. Really appreciate it. And it's clear that we could spend another hour asking you both so many questions on based on your experience. And sorry, we have to cut the panel discussion now. We only have a couple of minutes, and I would really like our partner, Anne Rosenberg, to come in and take everyone on, all participants through what the next steps are, how to join SDG Ambition, and to say a bit more about the upcoming Academy session in September. Anne.
Thank you so much, Nessa, and thank you so much for the partnership with you and Global Compact and Essentia and the great companies who's already driving a lot of good efforts in working with the ambitions. For all the panelists, when you listen to working with the SDGs, which we have been doing for many years, and we also know it has not been easy and it's complicated, and how do we get it into the company? What we really just need to think about, because this is what companies have been doing for years, working with a digital transformation and bringing the SDGs in as a key component of how we design our business model, how we design our business processes, how we create the underlying enterprise architecture. This is how you should think about it. So we are not talking about an additional project. We are talking about the existing initiative that you have going on in the company, where many companies, of course, today, based on the expensive technologies, the way they're changing the way they do their businesses, already have ongoing projects. So what you need to do is that you need to bring in the SDG ambitions into those projects. Just like today that we look for efficiency, optimization, innovation, when we are driving the way we run our business within our companies. So that's also a reason that we have set up an SDG Ambition Accelerator, because you can actually say working with SDG Ambition, as you already heard from the other panelists, is kind of like a mindset. It's a way of doing things, things that we already have been doing for years, but just doing it from another perspective. So we don't just have a SDG Institute going on as an add-on project, but it's an integrated project. And that's why we thought it was a great way to start this is by setting up an accelerator. So we invite you all to go in and be part of the SDG Ambition 6 months accelerator, which will be launched, it has been launched, but will be starting shortly after the General Assembly in September. The accelerator is, you can say what accelerator does, they enable companies doing a 6-month program really to understand what it means to sign up to an SDG ambition. It's all about looking at the baseline, because if you really want to improve things, you need to understand where you come from. So that's the reason why you sign up to the ambition. You look at the baseline, how well are you doing, how far are you for reaching the ambition, and then you really begin to go in and analyzing how you can begin to work with your business process, business model, enterprise architecture, and improve the way you do your business. Keep on measuring, and then in the end you will be able to reach the business benchmark. Of course, keep in mind you need to keep on measuring, so you keep on staying where you need to be with the business benchmark. So you can see here there's a couple of approaches. Understand baseline impact across the business to facilitate the creation of comprehensive sustainability strategy, undertake strategic priorities, set ambition goals, integrate and mainstream sustainable goals across business units, and commit and track. And again, as I said in the beginning, don't take this as an additional thing. Look into what is already going on within your company, and then begin to incorporate the SDG ambition thinking. So look into different line of businesses, what kind of project do we have going on, and then get it integrated. I will also say there's a lot of enablement and education that you should do inside your company. So whatever your consultant company on the call, and universities, there's a lot of universities on the call, whatever your corporation on the call, public, private, whatever kind of company you are, there's a lot of enablement and understanding that you need to have to work with the SDG ambition. So that's what leads to the integration guide. You saw in the beginning there was 3 guides. There's the first guide, which is all about the implementation, like you can call it the framework for the SDG ambition. The second guide is what Michael spoke about, the 10 business benchmarks. What you will see in the business benchmark document that has been created and released, there is also a view from an industry's perspective, because some of those business benchmarks are more applicable for certain industries than others. It also helps you to look at where do I look into my value chain, what kind of business process areas. And then the third guide, this is what we launched in September, which is the integration guide. And this is actually where you will see how we have taken the 10 business benchmarks, we have decompositioned them into the underlying business process step, and the underlying enterprise architecture. And also, how do you measure it? So it becomes super practical. And I actually think that's a key thing for me for the SDG ambition. It needs to be practical. It needs to be a guide. How do I do it? How do I implement so I can reach the business benchmarks? And one thing I want to mention is that the way you should look at the business benchmarks, it is actually a translation of the 17 global goals. So it's a translation for the corporate sector to better be able, so they're better equipped to really implement the 17 global goals. So that's how you should look at the business benchmarks. So that's why we're excited that the September the 22nd, we will have part 2 of the SDG ambition series at the Academy, which is all about how to integrate ambition goals for the decade of action. But it's really about how to take the 10 business benchmarks and how do you then implement them into your company. And important, how do you implement them applying one of your ongoing digital transformation projects? And that is actually what the accelerator will educate you to do. So when you join the accelerator, it will help you to go on this journey. And many of the networks have already signed up. Nessa will speak about this. And as you also mentioned, if you're not part of one of the networks, you can still be part of the global UN Global Compact globally, to be part of the SDG Ambition Accelerator. So a lot of excitement, a lot of practical guidance. It's time for action. It's time to do it. It's literally time to implement the SDGs and not just talk about it, as some of the other panelists also said. Over to you, Nessa.
Great. Thank you very much, Anne, for that overview and reiterating the different elements that the program is going to address. Much appreciated. We're over time now, so I realize many people may have to jump off the line, but I just wanted to quickly respond to some of the questions that we've been getting through the chat. We've been asked what countries have signed up and what countries are rolling out the SDG ambition through the local networks, and they are Bangladesh, Georgia, Malaysia, Spain, Ukraine, Belarus, Germany, Mexico, Sweden, United Kingdom, Brazil, India, Morocco, Switzerland, US, Croatia, Indonesia, Netherlands, Thailand, Finland, Lebanon, South Africa, and UAE. They've signed up so far. So looking, hope to have others join. Another question that we got was, can SMEs join? Of course. And we very much hope that SMEs will join the SDG Ambition program within their local networks. This is definitely meant to be applicable and relevant for SMEs as well. And I think that might be it. I don't know, Pia, if you want to come in, if I've missed any important questions that you think I may have overlooked.
No, I think you're all good.
Yeah. Okay, well, in the interest of time, I just want to thank our wonderful panelists and our partners once again, Anne, Michael, Esther, Farzana. Thank you so much for engaging. I'm sorry we couldn't stay on longer and go through all the details in much greater depth. We hope that we have inspired the participants on the call to look a little closer at SDG Ambition, check the links, please provide feedback to the business benchmarks. We would really appreciate your help in further refining them before they're finalized. Please visit our website and look at the sign-on form, and keep an eye out for the next Academy session. We'll be emailing you all about that in due course, and hope you'll be able to join then also. So with that, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your participation, and we look forward to working with you on SDG Ambition moving forward. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the day, evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wherever you are, take care. Bye.